This video is sponsored by Squarespace. So I've been thinking, how can a camera that's not far off 2 decades old be the most engaging photography experience we can have in 2025? For me, photography is more about the experience of getting out and actually taking photos. It relaxes me, soothes my soul, and fills my cup up, so to speak. However, anytime I use a super modern mirrorless camera, which I occasionally do for work, I feel really disconnected from the whole experience. I love film cameras, as you know, but with film getting more and more expensive, I'm finding it harder to justify in this cost of living crisis. Enter the vintage full-frame DSLR. I have here my Nikon D700, which I paid around 300 Australian dollars for. And honestly, this is one of the greatest cameras ever when it comes to the organic results it produces. This is no secret on the internet, but today in this video, I wanted to share some of the experiences I've had with the Nikon D700. Now, the D700 is famous for the images it produces, but alongside that, when I'm using it, I sometimes completely forget that it isn't one of my film cameras from the late 90s or early 2000s because the experience feels so similar. There's just something about the optical viewfinder and the confidence-inspiring sound of the shutter that just makes the overall experience of shooting this camera one of the more satisfying ones in our modern times. Now, don't get me wrong, I really like shooting with something like my Fuji X-E1, but that's more because of its compact size and the way it renders images. But when it comes to the actual experience of holding and using the camera, nothing compares to the D700. What you put into this camera, you get out. The more time you spend learning how it will behave and what it produces, the more magic you will see. I don't want to sound overly romantic, but there is something intangible that happens when you take photos with the D700. It doesn't look like film, it doesn't look like digital, it just has its own look. A really unique characteristic of this camera is the higher you get into ISO, the more of this strange noise it produces in the image. Sometimes it may make the photos look a little bit muddy, and then sometimes it makes it look like film where it softens everything. It makes it look beautiful. This camera with its modest 12 megapixels isn't really for someone who's going to zoom in and be really obsessed with image quality. But in saying that, 12 megapixels is great for most use cases if you are like an amateur hobbyist photographer. If you're a professional who needs more than that, then fair enough. But I really think that 12 megapixels should not put you off or hold you back. There is a bit of a threshold when it comes to vintage digital, and we do get into the realm of cameras having annoying, frustrating, quirky, so to say, features that can just really hinder the experience of using the camera. And this one is not like that. I have used my fair share of vintage digital cameras and reviewed some of them here on the channel, and things like slow startup, file compatibility, slow jumping around, off autofocus, and just so many other things can seem fun or quirky in the beginning, but quickly become really frustrating and just totally put you off picking up that camera again. And I never have that experience with the D700, which is why I wanted to make this video and why I'm so passionate about it as a camera. The only drawback with this camera, I would say, is its weight. It's very hefty, and I do kind of put off taking it out if I am going to be walking around taking photos, even though I know the results are going to be beautiful because it is a chunky monkey. It's very heavy and bulky. But when I do make the effort to carry it, I am always very thankful. The autofocus is functional, but it does require deliberate attention, and it won't just automatically do the job for you like a modern mirrorless camera. You are forced to engage with where you're placing your point of focus and feel the camera working to find its point and lock in. That feeling of hitting focus, then confirming with a sweet press of the shutter, just feels so different to how it does without the mechanical feedback lacking in modern cameras. Of course, you can put a vintage manual focus lens on it like this one here. And another great point of the D700 and investing in one of these cameras, especially if you have a lot of vintage lenses, they will carry over to this system as well. This camera takes compact flash cards, which aren't my favorite, but you can plug them into an adapter and then easily open them up in Lightroom, so it's really not that bad. A lot of people like dialing in picture profiles to these older Nikon cameras, similarly to how you would with a Fujifilm camera. This isn't something that I do. I much prefer to shoot in RAW and then just open it up in Lightroom. To be honest, if you nail exposure, you'll probably find yourself not really even needing to do much with the files because they look so good. But what I do is just load up my warm film preset and apply that just to give a consistent look of what I get from something like my Fuji X-E1 or all of my other digital work. If you're interested, you can find my preset on my website, lucylumen.com, for only $7. What a bargain. It only takes 2 seconds to purchase it if you have Apple Pay as well, which is something I love about my Squarespace website. If you have been wanting to sell your own presets, camera guides, fine art prints, or products, or even services, Squarespace has everything you need to set up an online store in minutes. Squarespace offers a place for photographers to carve out their corner of the internet, showcase their photography with beautiful drag and drop templates that look professional and slick. You don't need any website building experience. I built my website in a day or two, and I just keep building on it using all of the different features to customize and make it look how I want. My website has grown with me in the last 3 years that I've been using Squarespace, and I wouldn't be where I am today without the contact form that is on there. I have so many client inquiries come through, and I'm able to send a link straight to my portfolio for potential clients to look at. So it has been a game changer for me as a personal photographer and also as a professional photographer. If you are looking to build a website in 2025, you want to build your profile as a creative person or a photographer for hire, I highly recommend Squarespace. Try it today for yourself by heading to www.squarespace.com/LucyLumen to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain using code LucyLumen. If you enjoy my videos and you are in need of a renewal or new website, click the link below and help support me, and then get yourself an awesome Squarespace website in return. Thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. So I was speaking about my Fuji X-E1 before, and the way that I like to use my digital cameras like the Fuji and the D700 is to lock off my ISO at 400 and then work around that as a limitation. It just forces you to think about light in a different way and also play around with things like flash, which is my favorite. It will force you in your shooting experience to move around and get a better angle or lean into low light situations. So I find this a really great creative exercise. If you haven't tried shooting your digital cameras this way, I highly recommend. I say it a lot, but honestly, constraint is one of the best things an artist can use in their toolkit to get creative, and being able to just blast away at silly ISOs. Obviously, some people will need that for work, but generally most of you watching and myself, we don't really need that. Cranking up the ISO can just lead to lazy shooting, and it really takes away a lot of the magic of photography. Another thing that I've noticed and really love about the D700, as somebody who shoots a lot of film and I've shot a lot of people on film, my partner's taken a lot of film photos of me, and I love that because it makes me look really flattering and soft, and it just doesn't highlight all of your imperfections like digital cameras do. I find with the D700, I get that same feel and vibe. My partner and I work together a lot photographing, and if he has to shoot photos of me and there's a tight deadline for a brand, or we're just getting some new photos for the website and we can't afford, or there's timelines in place and we can't shoot film, I'm always begging for the D700 because it just makes my skin and everything look so nice. So if you are someone who is taking portraits, you're working with people a lot and you're wanting to invest in a new camera, this could be a really great one, especially if you're someone who does really enjoy film, it's part of your brand, it's part of what you do. Investing in something like this that's not really that expensive will 100% take the place of a film camera. I really am looking for things that give me that experience because it is so expensive now. And this paired with my preset is an absolute banger. I know there are plenty of other unique and beautiful cameras from this time period, and I have always had my eye on trying the Canon 5D Classic, but let me know below if there are other cameras in this kind of realm that you think I should try out or we should all know about.